Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this concise webinar. This one is about web hosting and looking at some of the issues with hosting, and also the question here, do you need a dedicated web server? Not every website does, but those who do really need it and need a good one. So this is a concise webinar. If you're not sure about concise webinars, we try to keep them concise. They're not sales pitches. It's valuable, hopefully valuable stuff that you can use in your business. My name is Richard Keeves, and this webinar is presented by myself and by Gareth Lane.
Hello.
He is there. It's always reassuring. Okay, so what do you need for good web hosting? Well, you clearly need a good web server. It needs to be reliable. It needs to be secure. You need good technical support, and all of this comes at a price. And generally, the price is what people focus on until they realize what it is that they're not getting, and the comparisons that aren't relevant. When you compare apples and oranges, it's not fair. Gareth, you wanted to talk about the biggest problem.
Yeah, so it's called overselling, and the easiest way to sort of think about it is if you've ever been at a stadium where there's 100,000 people all trying to use their phone at once and it's going slow. That's because the stadium was never designed, or the phone tower was never designed for allowing 100,000 people to all upload their videos all at the same time, and it just goes slow, right? The same thing happens with web servers, and when a website hosting doesn't have the sufficient resources to output the data at the right capacity, then users of that website notice slow loading. And so the concept of overselling is, rather than having one piece of hardware dedicated for one website owner's website, in order to get the price as low as possible, they and certain companies do it better or worse than others. They sell multiple clients on the same resources on the same computer, and there's no real limit, I guess, to how many that company can put on there. And it's usually the price dependent. And so the cheapest hosting usually has the most clients sharing one server, and the most expensive hosting is dedicated servers, which is what this webinar is about, where you have a dedicated set of resources only for your exclusive use. And you just have to be careful with the exclamation of dedicated when you're browsing other websites, because what will appear is $30 a month on one website, maybe $500 a month on another website, on one very tiny letter, and that is the letter V in front of the word CPU. So a virtual CPU is really the giveaway versus a dedicated CPU. So if you have a virtual CPU, that means that that piece of hardware is being sold multiple times to multiple people, whereas a dedicated CPU is dedicated for your exclusive use.
Yeah. So with the CPU, or central processing unit, that's the processor that does the work in the server. And the issue that servers face are how many requests are coming in at once that need to be processed at the same time, and those that are in excess of how many it can cope with at once go into a queue, and those people suffer wait time, and they appear to be the website for them appears to be slow to load, and this is often a function of the lack of CPU resources on the server. One of the things that Gareth was just mentioning about was the idea of overselling capacity. And with web hosting, there's three types of hosting essentially. One is when you're on a shared server, where there are lots of websites using the same resources. Another is a virtual private server, or a VPS. That's where some resources are allocated to you, but you're still sharing some other things. And the third is a dedicated server. And so when you have a dedicated server, you have dedicated CPU resources for your use, for the dedicated use of your website. Same thing with RAM. Gareth, do you want to talk to this?
Yeah, so RAM is used by websites that need or have a lot of files. So big images, PDF documents, or graphics or videos. So those type of websites need memory, and so if you've got a website which is e-commerce, generally that's processing of orders and processing of reports. That's more of a CPU a heavy load. Whereas if you've got a website that's selling stock photos or videos or those sorts of things, then you're more likely to need more RAM.
Hmm. And the other component, the other component on a server is the size and power and speed of the hard drive. So it needs to be big enough and fast enough so it can easily access and retrieve enough data at the same time for different users who are coming in at the same time. Otherwise, they go into this thing called the queue. And again, the website appears slow for those users. It may be fast for other users, but it may be slow for them. So it's about getting the optimal use of, or the optimal configuration of these various technical components together with the bandwidth. How big is the pipe that the server is connected to the rest of the internet with? Generally, that's not an issue these days because servers are contained in data centers that have very big pipes, and but it's more whether that pipe has been throttled back, so the flow of data is being restricted because you or whoever is is the business behind it is only paying for a smaller amount of access than that which is possible to be given to it. And so but you've got to be careful about the throttling back of bandwidth. The bandwidth for most data centers is huge, but you don't buy huge. You buy restricted, and it's often throttled back. And then, of course, there's some other factors that we talk. The reliability of the business, reliability of the server, the security, tech support, and it all comes at a price. So, Gareth, when we talk about dedicated servers, um, I know that we offer dedicated servers. Our website, our data center is with Amazon Web Services.
Yep.
And we allocate when a client comes to us and thinking they may want dedicated web server, then we set them up with a server and sufficient resources as a starting point that are devoted just to them. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah. So we use Amazon Web Services, which is a infrastructure provider, and then we configure the resources that particular client needs, and then we charge a percentage on top for our margin. And so our clients know that they're buying just the resources that they need. We don't do packages. We don't do gimmicky columns and pick one, pick two, pick three, because a lot of people don't know what they're buying and they don't know what the numbers even mean, and so they can be easily sold and confused by marketing tactics. So we prefer to say, well, we'll start on the minimum, and then we'll add more CPU or add more RAM or more hard drive as we need it. So we can configure each individual resource and just provide and sell what you actually need for that particular job.
Yeah, so to get the optimal balance. So typically, as from price points, the dedicated server starts. What's the kind of an entry level price point for that?
Usually around about $180 a month by the time you include all of the licensing and the software fees and the monitoring and so on, which I think is pretty competitive if you're matching spec for spec. Obviously, that's a lot more than $30 a month, but we are providing a dedicated set of resources, and so we're only charging 30% of what Amazon is charging us.
Yeah, and so $180 a month entry level, and typically, what would an average be for dedicated servers?
It really depends on the size of the website, but a couple of $100 a month sort of thing, $200 to $300. It's very rare to be spending in the thousands of dollars per month unless you have a very high load website with a lot of dedicated resources and auto scaling and load balancing and whatnot. But generally, it's in the hundreds of dollars per month.
Yeah, okay. Rightio. Is there anything you want to add on this?
I think if anyone's got any questions, you're welcome to email. If you're not sure about the technical, we can have a conversation about it. But generally, the point is try and just buy what you need without getting sold something you don't.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. Thanks very much, Gareth. That's a good,
All right.
concise webinar. Thank
Well
you.
done. See ya.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.